you bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go!
And a good Tuesday morning, Eagle fans. Camp continues, but with a couple of new participants today that we're going to talk about here on Birds 365 over the next 2 hours. You got Mac and Mac for now. McMullen and McDonald here to hang with you, but Johnny Mac's got to exit stage left and head over to the NovaCare complex where the Eagles will be going full practice today. This is the walkthrough, right, John? They're going full.
Oh no, this is not if it's a walkthrough, we're not in.
Oh,
there,
you're not there.
so
You're sticking around me.
yeah.
I forgot. Right. My bad.
So it's either green or yellow. So my guess is they're trying to replicate a normal game week. So my guess is this going to be a green practice, like a Wednesday on a normal game week. But we'll see. They're hinky these days. So, this practice wasn't originally on the schedule. Remember, when the official training camp, they added this schedule. They added this practice to the schedule. And they, with the thought process of replicating a game week. So,
yeah. Did they reschedule that Raven Eagle game, or is it being played when it was scheduled like 6 months ago?
They did not. So yeah,
Right.
it's and I know a lot of people.
So this just throwing down them that they'd like to have a week where they're scheduling it like what would be a regular season week, even though they've known this game was coming for months.
I wish I could tell you, but yeah, a lot of people have said to me, well, maybe they think they're not getting enough work done.
No, thank you for asking my next question before I even asked it for me. Do you at least give that some credence that they haven't quite accomplished what they wanted to accomplish at this time, and said we better take that day off we were planning and actually use it?
No, I don't. Here's why. What is an extra hour and 10 minutes, maybe hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes? What is that going to do in the big picture in August? I mean, if you're saying you're not getting enough work in, you're going to add more than one random practice. As far as, I am a little.
Whoa, time out, Philadelphia. I'm going to play John McMullen here. You can only do so much. The collective bargaining agreement doesn't allow you to do so much. What is one random practice? Well, what it means is plenty. But when you don't have all that much time to prepare for a season to begin with because you've collectively bargained it all away, I'm not going to say this is a throwaway.
But I'm not going to say it's a throwaway. Anytime you're practicing, it's better than when you're not practicing. But, the CBA is what it is. Yeah, you're limited, but you can also use as much time as humanly possible, like Andy Reid, somebody like that. Or you can do it the way the Eagles have done it. Adding one practice to what the Eagles do is not what Andy does, taking all available time. Like, if you want to take all available time, take all available time. that makes sense to me. Adding one rando practice is, and the explanation was that was given to me made sense why they're doing it. So and I believe them. I don't always believe them. Like when they talk about, like when Nick Sirianni talks about liking his linebacker room. Well, no, you're lying to me.
Yeah,
You don't
he's
like your
pleased
linebacker
with his
room.
linebacker room.
Yeah.
Prior to them going out and picking up 2 guys off the
yeah.
scrap heap.
So it's not like I'm deferring to them. I think it makes sense. They're not, 90 minutes of extra work on a Tuesday. What are we, Tuesday? It's training camp. I never know what day it is. On a Tuesday August 8th. I mean, no. I don't think that's gonna the crux of, we got to get better on Tuesday, August 8th. We haven't gotten I don't think that's the crux of it.
All right. Maybe you said, and it went right over my head. Their explanation was what that you're buying into, other than they actually could use a little more practice time.
They want to replicate a game week from a preparation standpoint.
Right,
It's probably got more to do with the coaching staff than anything else, than the players, because obviously the starters aren't going to play. They're trying to replicate a game week from a preparation. Remember, they have 2 new coordinators. So, that's a big deal.
Okay.
That's been underplayed by a lot of people, but that's a big deal. And I think if you're asking me about the game, also, I think the biggest deal about the game is the communication aspect between the new coordinators and the rest of the staff, more than anything that happens on the field. So I think it's got more to do with the coaching staff replicating that game week than anything else.
Okay, so we've gone completely in a circle. I'm going to try this one more time. The preseason game against the Ravens was scheduled for Saturday, August 13th, 6 months ago, somewhere thereabouts. So it just dawned on the organization this week, hey, we haven't really had a full week of practice leading up to a game. They just figured that out this week when it was in place 6 months ago. That's where I'm getting a little fuzzy on this, John, that we need to get a full week of practice. Well, you knew that 6 months ago. Why was the schedule changed?
I've criticized this team for the schedule. Remember when the training camp schedule came out, how late compared to some other teams. I wondered for a while why this team is so non-Andy Reedish. When it like I always joke about Andy. If you ask Andy what his schedule is going to be in 2027, because he's got the CBA, it's not going to change. He knows what his schedule is going to be. Now, it's interesting because Sean Desai said the other day they had the training camp schedule back in April. Well, they didn't let us into it until 3 days before training camp started.
Right.
Now, they got a framework and they know how they want to work. And basically they don't want to do a lot of back-to-backs. They want to, they want to have to walk. So, yeah, fly by the seat of the pants. And somebody woke up one day, Nick woke up one day and said, hey, I better do this. I don't think he puts as much, and this is just not reporting, this is just my speculation.
Right.
I don't think he puts as much emphasis on the schedule as somebody like Andy. That's it. I think it's pretty simple.
The schedule has changed, as has the linebacker room, despite the fact that Nick Sirianni said when the 2 newest Eagles got signed the other day that he was pleased with the linebacker room. If I were certain Eagle linebackers, I'd be wiping my brow going, yeah, but the coach says he's pleased. And not really when you go out and you pick up 2 guys off the street and give them $5 million between the 2 of them. And again, still no details on how the 2 1-year up to $2.5 million contracts are broken out. You haven't seen or heard anything in addition to that,
other than the $2.5 million. I haven't seen, but I'm pretty confident it's 500, but we'll see. That'll get confirmed probably by the end of the week. And
500,000 as in guaranteed. Is that what
500 guaranteed is my guess, and it's going to be very, very close to that. If maybe a little bit more than less. But I think it's going to be in that range. But we'll see when it gets actually filed. And but yeah, they're going to have some guaranteed money, so
Right.
they're going to beat Nicholas Morrow.
If Nick Sirianni is pleased with the linebacker room prior to Jack and Zach coming in, does he move to ecstatic today since he was already pleased and they've added 2 new players? But we'll see if they've got anything left in the tank once they hit the practice field today. He's got to be just stone cold ecstatic about the linebacker position. Yeah, it doesn't bode well for a guy like Nick Morrow, who came in on a non-guaranteed contract completely during the offseason.
Well, you know, I'll say this. I'll say this about Nick Morrow. Yeah, I think he's an average player, to be kind, below average starter in the NFL. But I don't think there's any guarantee. We haven't seen Zach Cunningham or Miles Jack yet. We'll get to see them today. They were there on the open practice, but they didn't, just stand in there. We'll get to see him at practice for the first time today. It's conceivable they have nothing left. I go back to 2016, Jim Schwartz's first year, Doug's first year. If you remember, he brought in Stephen Tulloch, who he had a long history with at Tennessee and Detroit. Really good player at the height of his career. He had nothing left. I mean, nothing. And we're sitting there, well, Tulloch's here with Schwartz. He's going to be a big part of it. Nothing. He had nothing left. So, again, Zach specifically, I think, has been a really solid player. Miles has been a real NFL player. It's conceivable they have nothing left. But, I still say if that's the case, because they're on the street August 5th or whatever it was, August 6th, that tells you a lot. The contract tells you a lot. But even in that scenario, I think then they try again, some other route, whether it be a trade or signing or something like that. Nick Sirianni's not happy with the linebacker room. Howie Roseman's probably more unhappy with the linebacker room. Howie knows there's an issue. Hopefully this fixes it, but there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee it fixes it.
I'll give you, to help make your point, a couple other guys that you never know when the tank is just going to run dry. Ryan Kerrigan. I thought when they signed Ryan Kerrigan a couple of years ago, I said, wow, if he's anywhere near what he used to be to get him for the price in the mix or whatever. No, he was done. And the Eagles basically carried him all year long.
Last year. Yeah.
Even though
look at Robert Quinn.
That's where I was going next. Yeah. God, McMullen, you and I are on the same page this year. That's okay.
19 and a half sacks, and a year and a half later, he's done. He's shot.
Exactly. And by the way, and we want to get to this. They revealed the top 10 on the NFL.com player voting, top 100 players in the NFL. We knew Jalen Hurts was going to be up there, just didn't know exactly where. Number 3. Mahomes number 1, Jefferson number 2, Jalen Hurts number 3, ahead of Joe Burrow, ahead of Josh Allen.
Can't go disrespect today, Eagles fans.
Yeah, you got to put that card in your back pocket. Eagle disrespect. I don't think so. Number 3 in the whole league. That's pretty damn impressive. And last year, Robert Quinn was like number 42. Coming into the season, the 42nd best player in the National Football League coming into last year, because the year before he had 18 and a half sacks. So when the players do this, and I know you've referenced this before because you're in the locker room there, when they hand out the sheets for the Pro Bowl voting, and some players finish their voting in 45 seconds, 90 seconds, maybe. Give me a pen.
Yeah. Well, we're a little bit more than that because they usually write down about 10 names. But let's see, we're almost 15 minutes into the show. They ain't taking this segment long to think about it. So
no, not even.
That's
close.
how I'll describe it.
So I think you can go back and look at the list that ended up being revealed all the way to number one last night and come up with the determination that, yeah, they're kind of slaves to the moment. Who was great the last time somebody was on the field, and that's Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl. Yeah, we're going to move them up significantly, going from completely unranked in the top 100 to number 3.
What I love about all these lists, all of them, like I put the same at my list, your list, NFL Network's list, players list, media's list, PFF's list, all of them. I put in the same category, because there's so many lists. You can like them, you can dislike them. If you dislike them, go on to the next one. You know me, I never get upset. I never get fired up, but I love it. I love it when somebody finishes well, like Jalen. It's the greatest list in the world. And when somebody finishes poorly, same list, Hassan Reddick, they'll say, well, Hassan Reddick outplayed Nick Bosa. I think Nick was 4th.
Yep.
Hassan Reddick outplayed Nick. You can't have it both ways. All right. You like the list. You don't like the list. I guess you can have it both ways if you're a hypocrite. But,
right. You just don't care.
Yeah.
It's all Eagles all the time. It doesn't matter. Not even trying to be diplomatic about it. All right, JM, I do want to get this in with you because when I saw this, I said, uh-oh, man, Johnny Mac can't be happy about this. With the dearth of linebackers for the Eagles over the last couple of days, Davion Taylor giving his walking papers, new guys in, got to stand on the sidelines the other night at practice, but didn't actually participate. Nakobe Dean injured or hurt, or call it what you want, but hopefully not badly. And you think there's any chance he's out there practice today?
Good question. They had a day off, so maybe they ramp him back up. But again, if he's not 100%, they're gonna go on without him. I mean, they're not gonna push him out there if he's not 100% on August 8th. So, if he's healthy, he'll be out there. If he's still feeling a little bit, they will err on the side of caution. No question about it.
And that was one thing that Sirianni said. And again, sometimes you have to try and judge not only what Nick says, but the way that he says it as to how much plausibility you actually have to put into the stance. You and I both raised the question mark flag when he said he was pleased with the linebacker room. As you're cutting guys before the first preseason game and you're adding guys that were on the street all off season before. Oh, but we're pleased with the linebacker. Yeah, sorry, I'm throwing a BS flag on that one too. But I did believe when he said the two signings mean nothing, should read nothing into their confidence in Nakobe Dean. Now, they could be proven wrong, but I believe that they believe that he's their middle linebacker and he's going to play every snap the same way that Edwards, almost every snap the same way that Edwards did last year. I do believe that. We'll find out over time once it actually starts to count in games that will be in the standings for the regular season, whether Nick was a little overly optimistic or not. You know me, Mr. Nakobe Dean, president of his fan club. So I'm hoping that the coach has got the right read on it. He's watching film of him after practice every single day, and I hope they do really like what they're seeing. But they had a major dearth of linebackers at the open practice on Sunday night, and they actually did some, not many, but some drills with their second first-round draft pick playing the outside linebacker position. And again, you and I talk about this all the time on the air. What is an outside linebacker? What isn't an outside linebacker? What is an off-ball linebacker? What isn't an off-ball linebacker? What is an edge player as compared to what everyone always thought of as defensive lineups? 3 linebackers, 4 defensive linemen. Eagles actually play 5. But do you think there's any chance that they actually do try to use Nolan Smith as an outside linebacker, off-ball linebacker, call it what you want, rather than an edge player? Or do you think that was just because they didn't have enough live bodies? Did you not tell me Sean Bradley was out there with the ones the other night? Because
Ben Van Sumeren got a couple first-team reps and was actually calling the defense. He was the green dot for a couple reps. So yeah, that's why. If you want to know why Zach and Miles are here, maybe that's the best explanation of all. No, they're not going to play him at off-ball linebacker. Other than desperation, I always say, when you get down to 53 in Avonte Maddox, I go back to his rookie season. Look, nobody wanted to play Avonte Maddox at safety. They had to because they had a bunch of injuries. So in that type of situation, when you're down to 53, could he play a game or two at off-ball linebacker because they have to? Yeah, but only in that type of situation. They know what he is, and he's got great potential as an edge rusher. That's what they scouted him for. They're not going to play him at off-ball linebacker. That's one of the reasons, again, Zach. That's another reason. There's a lot of reasons why Zach Cunningham and Miles Jack are here. Because they don't want to play him at off-ball linebacker. And he's not an off-ball linebacker, but he does have the athleticism. Yeah, you know me, Jody. Labeling is a big problem with the NFL.
You and I both.
And especially when it comes to, from the player perspective, it's a big problem for contracts, to be honest. But from a fan perspective, it's a problem from an education perspective. Because you see linebacker, like if you pick up an Eagles roster, I got one right here, Jody.
As provided to you by who?
The Eagles PR department.
Gotcha.
Nolan Smith, Hassan Reddick, Patrick Johnson, Kyron Johnson are all listed at linebacker in the same grouping with Nakobe Dean and Nicholas Morrow and Sean Bradley and Ben Van Sumeren. So I get why fans are and a lot of fans are educated and they understand the difference, but I get why some fans don't understand the difference. The difference is best described by where they are in the meetings. The Nolan Smiths and the Hassan Reddicks of the world are in with Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham because they're edge players and they're with Jeremiah Washburn. The off-ball linebackers are with DJ Elliott, the off-ball linebacker coach. That's a better indication of how the Eagles view the player. Why they still do this, I don't know. I don't know. It drives me insane.
I know it does. That's why I had to bring it up today. And the Eagles are going to do what the Eagles are going to do. And like you said, you're given that depth chart by the Philadelphia Eagles, so they're going to do whatever they want to do. I use our lads, their depth chart to me, because they're not affiliated with any one team. The Eagles are giving you the only information they want you to have. Our lads is an independent source, and they too list Hassan Reddick as a linebacker. No, he's not. That's why Hassan Reddick has become Hassan Reddick, because the team this year.
Well, again, see, to me, he's a Sam linebacker. He's a strong side linebacker. By labeling definition. All right. But that, to me, when you're doing a depth chart, is not important. Where does he play? Jonathan Gannon would call it an overhang player.
Mm-hmm.
He plays like an edge. He plays like an edge. That's why I think everybody should use the term edge player. Now, Josh Sweat's more of a traditional defensive end with his hand in the ground. So he is a Sam linebacker. Nolan Smith is a Sam linebacker. Patrick Johnson, Kyron Johnson, all the undersized guys are basically Sam linebackers, but they're edge players. The off-ball linebackers, the weak side, the Mike, those are the guys off the ball. It's a different position. But they clump it all in as linebacker, and you have this, I don't know any other word to describe it, but lack of education because they glom it all in. And it's not indicative. And you see it all over, because how many times you hear the term 4-3-3-4? Nakobe Dean was the team's third linebacker last year because TJ Edwards and Kaiser White were healthy for every game. Nakobe Dean played 34 snaps. So what are you worried about 4-3?
Right. It's
versus and then we'll say, well, the 50 front's a 3-4. No, it's not. It's a
It's a
5-2.
5-2. Absolutely right.
If you want to bang your head against the wall and say, well, Reddick's a linebacker and Josh Sweat's playing linebacker, he's playing outside linebacker, go ahead. I mean, I can't force you not to bang your head against the wall, but it's not the case.
All right, Johnny, let me ask you this because people are going to draw the parallels from last year when the Eagles in season, at least they did it earlier this year before they even got a preseason game under their belt, went out and added 2 veteran guys who weren't on teams who had better careers between you and I, certainly, and Dominican Sue had, than the 2 linebackers that they signed yesterday. But there's a similarity in that it's later in the offseason additions. We knew that when they made the signings they did last year, although they were, again, both defensive tackles, they were different players that brought different skill sets to the team. Give me a comp between Zach and Jack, between Miles and Cunningham. What type of games do they have? How do you think they're going to be used? Are they actually only competing for one position? Are they competing against each other? How do their games fit what the Eagles need to do at linebacker?
Well, they're both legitimate off-ball linebackers. So, they're both in here to push Christian Ellis, Nicholas Morrow to play opposite Nakobe Dean. And your hope is the best one wins. I think the Eagles' hope is the best one wins, and both have something left in the tank. And then you do have some durability concerns with Nakobe. Can he play 17 games? And the Eagles really want to play 20. Can he play 20 consecutive games? And it gives you a bit of an insurance policy if he's, got a sprained ankle during the season and he's got to miss a game or 2.
So
then
which of those 2 would you say would be the better middle linebacker? If
no question, middle would be Cunningham from the way they played. Jack would be more the weak side guy, and Jack could probably play a little bit on the edge as well because of his athleticism. But the Eagles have 75 edge rushers, so I don't think that's going to come into play. But yeah, Zach Cunningham to me would be a similar situation if he's got something left in the tank. Think of it like Cam Jurgens. Well, he's the starting weak side linebacker. Cam's the starting right guard. But if the center goes down, Cam's going to play center. Well, if the middle linebacker goes down, then Zach would play middle linebacker. That would be, and again, we haven't even seen him practice once,
right.
But that would be my guess.
I'm asking you to speculate on what they had done formerly before. And one last thought, and then I know you got to run. Again, the other night, we touched on this yesterday, didn't go over it all that much. Marcus Mariota had trouble throwing the football. And he's had trouble throwing the football basically throughout camp. What he's done better than anything else is when need be, pull it down and take off. He's shown that he can still run, even though he's got, this is 8th year or 9th year in the league. He's no spring chicken anymore, but he can still make plays with his legs and almost looks a little like Jalen when he does take off. But his throwing has been a problem. Does it not matter? Is he locked into the backup quarterback? If Jalen goes down, they're going to sink or swim with Marcus Mariota for, if it's 4 games, that's a big chunk of your season. There's no chance that either of the 2 quarterbacks behind him could actually move into the backup slot, could they?
No, those 2 guys aren't ready. No, those 2 guys aren't pushing. Tanner McKee and Bullock aren't even pushing Marcus Mariota. So, yeah, it's, you hope he doesn't have to play. But I would say this, and I said it a little bit yesterday, and I'll say it today. The second team offensive line has been bad. It's one of the reasons they're shuffling there a little bit, especially the interior. So, bad snaps. A lot of times he's got that kills a whole play. That kills a rep. A bad snap. They've had so many bad, and it doesn't even have to be a worm burner, or there's been a lot of those. But even if he's got to bend down to corral the snap, it ruins the timing of the rep. So in a theory where he'd have to play, he'd be playing behind this great offensive line, and I think he'd be much better, to be honest. But he's never been an accurate quarterback. I just don't think he's that accurate. You don't want to see him play, but you don't want to see any backup quarterback play. The 49ers being the outlier last year, but that's an outlier. You never want to see, and certainly when you have a quarterback who was just rated the number 3 player in the NFL by his peers, you don't want the backup quarterback playing. Right. So but I think Marcus would be better, a lot better behind, and it makes sense, the best offensive line in football. The offensive line isn't helping him, is how I would say.
Would it not be at least in part ironic that if Jalen Hurts, who has become the number 3 player in the National Football League, who was drafted as a backup quarterback, the main reason the Philadelphia Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round when they did was because they wanted someone that they thought they could plug in year 1 as the backup to the often injured Carson Wentz. They prioritize backup quarterbacks as much, if not more so, than any other team in the league if their season comes apart because they misjudged who to sign as their backup quarterback. Now, your point about, hey, Jody, come on, don't he's playing with all the second team. The whole Eagle offense isn't going to get hurt, and they're going to try and put their whole second team offensive line and everybody else out there to try and win games this year. I get that. That's very accurate and very right. I hope that's the reason why Marcus Mariota has struggled because, yeah, you never know. You never know what injuries are going to happen, and the fact that the Eagles put a little time and effort into figuring out backup quarterbacks, hopefully they got this one right. And we got a lot of time before the season gets underway, and hopefully is a conversation that's never necessary because Jalen Hurts stays healthy all 17 years. Johnny Mac, safe travels across the bridge. Listen, I won't talk to you till Monday. I need the next 3 days off here from Birds 365. I got to do some WIP morning work. So I will be texting with you over the weekend, but I won't talk to you till Monday. Have a good day over at practice.
You too, Jody. Thanks for filling in. I see Tommy in the green room as well. Hi, Tommy. I won't get to talk to you. That's a disappointment, but he'll do a great job. So I appreciate it, guys. And I'll see you Monday, Jody.
Tommy Lawler from EaglesBlitz.com coming up next with us here on Birds 365. And hopefully a little bit later, if I didn't screw it up, Ricky Ricardo, the voice of the Eagles en Espanol, who I was supposed to send a reminder text to last night. He said he'd come on with us in hour number 2 today. Only I was on the air last night on WIP, so I kind of forgot to send Ricky the text. I'm going to send him a text now. Hopefully he gets it. Hopefully he's up. We know for a fact that Tommy Lawler is coming up next because he's already ready in the green room. Tommy Lawler here with us next on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, But would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, did you know I was the Mommy Slam Dunk Champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake a mom. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh. EAGLES. Eagles.
You got half of the Mac squad. Johnny Mac had to make his way over to practice today. I believe it's Sean Desai's talking. They get a coach prior to practice, and then will they go green or yellow today? My guess is only yellow because the Eagles don't put all that much emphasis. They added the practice. So I guess I shouldn't be complaining about it. They are getting some more work in, and Johnny will be over there. So I reached out to my guy, Tommy Lola from Eagles, IGGLES Blitz.com to jump in with me and fill the void today. TL, how's your summer going?
It's good. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you for jumping in with us. And yes, we've got football to actually pay, not just speculate on, but be able to see and evaluate certain things that teams are doing to get ready for the regular season. And the Eagles is chief among them here on Birds 365. Howie Roseman decided to redo his linebacker room. Not from top to bottom. Nakobe Dean, if healthy, is going to be the starter middle linebacker. I just told John, I believe Nick Sirianni when he said this. This is no reflection on Nakobe Dean, at least not yet. But it certainly was a reflection on Davion Taylor, who is no longer an Eagle and doesn't bode well for Nicholas Morrow. What did you think when you heard the Eagles had signed not one, but two linebackers off the street before their practice at the Link on Sunday?
Well, if Nakobe Dean's healthy, maybe they only sign one. But with Dean banged up a little bit, I think, adding two guys is work. Listen, as much as this is about a regular season, it's also a little bit about the preseason. They've got 3 games to get through. And you don't want to just have guys out there for a ton of snaps if you want them to play for you this season. The preseason is different than the way you and I remember it from years ago when your starters ate up a lot of reps. And now they need guys to get through some of those games. But I think, honestly, the linebacker position, I think initially they wanted to give the holdovers a chance to show what they could do. And that's Sean Bradley. That was Davion Taylor. And obviously the new guy, Ben Van Sumeren. See what those guys can do. Give them a few practices. Obviously, none of them jumped out and said, wow, we're here to really push for starting time. So now all of a sudden you bring in a couple of veterans who have plenty of starts between them. You plug those guys in as your backups, and you still let Sean Bradley and Ben Van Sumeren, get reps in practice, but you just don't, there's not an impetus there to push them into key roles should somebody else get hurt. And so you needed better depth. They gave the young guys a chance. Nobody really flashed the way that they had hoped. So they needed some good backups. And I think they've got a couple of guys who, listen, they were on the street for a reason, right? Let's not oversell it. But these guys do have a history of being successful starters. So at the least, you feel like you've got some guys who can get you through if needed.
What we do here on Birds 365 and all the other media members who cover the Eagles and shoot all our viewers and streamers, we all like to play amateur general manager and try and figure out what the roster is going to look like when they have to get down to 53. The 2 additions they made are guys who are not going to be on the practice squad. So either they're going to make the 53-man roster or they're not. Do you envision a roster that's got both of these guys making the Eagles?
No. So
it's an either or thing.
I think there's no question the Eagles like Nakobe Dean. They want that guy to be their key linebacker. We'll see. Either one of Christian Ellis or Nick Morrow still has a good chance to start. One of these guys will be there, has a real strong chance. Now, listen, they got to play well. they're not guaranteed anything. If they come in and they stink up the joint, and we've seen the Eagles bring in linebackers in the last 4 or 5 years who had promise and came in here and stunk the joint up and got cut. So these guys could fill right into that boat. But I would think one of those guys, because when you look at your depth chart, Sean Bradley you want on the team because you want him to play special teams.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's why I was going with the special teams, Tommy.
Yeah, so you keep one of these guys, and one of those guys will probably be okay with playing special teams, but you can't load up with all those guys. The other thing is you just want, you need cheap young players. And Sean Bradley's the guy that's been around for a couple of years. They'd love to keep him around, keep giving him chances to show what he can do. As we see with the safety position, Kayvon Wallace. Kayvon didn't do much his first couple of years in the league. Last year started to make some plays on defense, played better on special teams. And this year, Kayvon's having a good summer.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Bradley could be a guy where things finally click for him next year. Maybe he becomes an even better player next year. So you never want to get run of young players that are showing you something. And especially for a guy who's a 28, 29-year-old veteran who his best days are behind him. So to me, I don't think they would keep both, but we'll see.
So do we have to read into that Davion Taylor showed them nothing? Because they made the move away from him pretty damn quickly.
Yeah, no, he didn't show up enough. There's no question. And you go back, in 2021, he had the game against Denver. He forced a couple of fumbles. He looked athletic, and you said, okay, maybe he can build on that. Well, he didn't build on that game. Just didn't happen. And then last year, he had a great OTAs. He looked great in training camp, and then the preseason games got here, and I don't know what happened to him. He just lost it and was awful. Not bad, awful in the preseason games. And so he didn't make the team last year. He was on a practice squad, and they've kept around and year 3 for him now, and they just hadn't seen the progress from him to say, let's keep investing our time in him. And I'm sure it wasn't easy, but it's one of those decisions. Football, sports in general, it's cold. You just have to walk away from guys. You may love him. He sounds like a good guy.
Right.
You just have to walk away from him and say, listen, our question right now is, can you help us win a Super Bowl? Right? We're not just trying to find some good players and do well. We want to win a Super Bowl. Can you help us win a Super Bowl? And the answer obviously was no.
And, oh, by the way, even though we had a tie to the new Eagles linebacker coach, that wasn't enough to save Davion Taylor, which I like to see. Not for Davion. I feel badly for Davion, but the fact that the Eagles did not allow familiarity, or the fact that he was a third-round draft pick, and when you're cutting a third-round draft pick only this few years, it does not reflect well on the general manager. Howie Roseman didn't care. He said, I got to help this team this year, and I got to build the best team possible, roster possible. If that means admitting a mistake with Davion Taylor as a third-round draft pick, so be it. And I give Roseman credit for it. I take credit away from using a third-round pick on him, but just doubling down and continuing to have him on the team just because you called his name out a couple of years ago is not good business, and Howie did not go down that road. All right, you mentioned Kayvon Wallace getting reps actually with the first-team safeties. Most of us assumed that they were going to go with the free agent that they brought in from Pittsburgh this year as one of their starters, along with their undrafted free agent who has become a little bit of a cult hero here in Philadelphia in very short time as their starting safeties. But it was going to be a rotational position. It really wasn't last year. Only time you guys saw guys coming off the bench was when there was injuries. But Kayvon Wallace has fought himself into the mix for potential starter reps with this team. I didn't see it coming. Johnny Mack has said on the record he didn't see it coming either. Again, I think it bodes well for the Eagles that they're open-minded about certain things. Can Kayvon Wallace actually, this side, Reed Blankenship, who I think will get the most snaps at center, could Kayvon Wallace end up being the center, the safety who plays the second most snaps on this team this year?
Yeah, it's certainly possible. And the beauty of training camp is that everybody comes in and everybody gets a chance. The coaches say that, and I know some fans don't believe it. The coaches genuinely, they've seen enough. They've been around long enough. They've seen guys that come in with a great track record and fail. They've seen guys that come in with a mediocre track record and succeed. Coaches are looking for good players. They don't care who they are, where they come from, third round, fourth round, undrafted, veteran, young. They're looking for players. And Kayvon showed promise last year. The first couple of years, he was flat out a disappointment. There's no two ways to say it. And then last year, he got on the field at a certain point, and he started a little slow. It looked a little not so great. He made some poor decisions. And I feel like the more he played, he was able to work through any errors that came up, and he started to make plays and play with confidence. And he also played a lot on special teams. Maybe special teams gave him the confidence to succeed on defense. And now we're seeing that he's building on that. The coaches love to use that phrase, stack practices.
Yep.
Don't just have a good day, and then have another good day, and then another good day. Consistency is what they're looking for. And Kayvon is showing him something this year, and maybe he's going to be the guy that plays beside Reed Blankenship. They would love to see, because Kayvon's homegrown. So they would love to see that. And Sidney Brown has started to come on a little bit in recent days. Terrell Evans doesn't like he's been bad, but Terrell Evans, I don't think has done anything to make him go, wow, you're going to be definitively the guy. They kind of know what he is because he started 75 games in the NFL. So there's not a lot of mystery there. So let's give Kayvon Wallace a chance to show what he can do, and he's looking good. And then, like I say, Sidney Brown is doing some things as well. So safety, it's a little uncertain, but I feel like the Eagles probably like their safety group more than some people think.
And it's the second time in 2 segments I've been able to use the word ironic. It's kind of ironic at safety, because I just raise a hand and say it was certainly my line of thinking. Kayvon Wallace was surpassed by Reed Blankenship. Coming into last year, Kayvon Wallace was going to be the guy. All right, well, he'll be the third. We've got 2 good safeties. When CJ shows up and immediately shows that he can play, all right, we're good at safety. Just got to have a number 1 backup. That'll be Kayvon Wallace. Wrong. Ends up being Reed Blankenship, because he flat out outplayed him during the preseason. That goes to your point of the coaches are not beholden to where or how you were acquired. They're just going to evaluate you for what you do on the field for them. And Blankenship did that much that he elevated himself on the depth chart. Now this year, it could be Blankenship and Kayvon Wallace together. And even though Kayvon would be a bit of a surprise for us. I just talked about this with Johnny Mack before you came on. I want to get your take on it too. Surprising in camp has been the fact that Marcus Mariota has not looked good when he's gotten reps at the quarterback position. Now he's getting them with the second team. The second team center has not been good. A lot of problems with snaps and the like. But there have been a bunch of plays where Marcus has gotten a nice clean snap and protection, had time, and he airmailed the throw to his wide receivers. Anytime the starting quarterback goes down in this league, or I should say 90% of the time when the starting quarterback with San Francisco last year being the exception, you go, oh, shoot, we're screwed. Because there's a drop-off. There's a reason why one guy starts and the other's the backup. And on paper, this was a pretty good drop-off. Anybody from Jalen Hurts to whoever is going to be a pretty good drop-off. Did the Eagles mess up their selection at backup quarterback this year, bringing Marcus Mariota in? Little crystal ball got to predict for me, Tommy. Are you nervous about that?
Not really. Backup quarterback, you go through training camp history, and there's a lot of backup quarterbacks who struggled. Playing with the backups just does make things challenging for them. There's just no question. You go back to 2017, and Nick Foles was stinking up the joint. And then I seem to recall he did okay toward the end of the season, won a key game or 2, if memory serves right. And so really, you never know what the coaches are grading those guys on. The coaches may focus more on decision-making and say, listen, if you're throwing to A.J. Brown, that play is going to work. You're going to make a better throw. He's going to be more open. The timing's going to be better. So they may focus more on decision-making. I don't know. It'd be interesting to speak to coaches about that if you could get them truth serum and find out what they really think. We know what they would say, through the press conferences. Everybody's great. We love them all, and things are all rosy. There's no question that Mariota struggled. He's not throwing the ball consistently well. His accuracy's been an issue. He's running way too much. And running is great in games. You're making plays. But in practice, you don't want to run. You want to throw that pass. You want to give your receivers a chance to make plays. You want to see the defensive backs in coverage. So you want that ball coming out of the quarterback's hands. Him scrambling doesn't really do much. It makes something fun for the fans to watch that are at practice that day. But the coaches want to see that ball come out of his hand. And the fact he's not pulling the trigger, you'd rather him pull the trigger and take some chances than what he's doing. So I'm sure the coaches aren't thrilled that he's running as much as he is. but they also, like I say, they may be grading him a little differently, knowing the circumstances of who he's playing with, what have you. I tend to think if Marcus was on the field with the starters, had practice, was ready for a game, I think you'd see a better version. At the same time, let's be honest, he's a backup quarterback for a reason, right? He's not going to be in the anywhere close to Jalen Hurts. So can he be good enough as the backup this year? I think so, sure. But he's not a guy that we want to see on the field for 6 or 8 games. Let's hope Jalen stays healthy this year.
6 or 8 snaps, that'd be fine. Games, no, that might be a bit much for the Eagles to have to get over. My buddy Tommy Lawler from Eagles Blitz, that's IGGLES, blitz.com, here with us on Birds 365. All right, this is the segment of the show where I'll advise our streamers who are diehard Eagle fans who don't like when we ask questions about potential problems for the Eagles or point out some potential issues, and I'll get people ripping me and saying, he's not really an Eagle fan. All right, well, I'll do so again now because I think it's my job to point out both good and bad when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. You probably have heard by now, Tommy, that Jalen Hurts was ranked the 3rd best player in the National Football League by his peers, by the players going into the 2019 season. Did Jalen Hurts screw up by signing the contract that he signed? Because if he's the 3rd best player, he should be getting paid more than Justin Herbert. He should be getting paid more than Joe Burrow. And, oh, by the way, I guarantee you Burrow's going to sign, and it's going to be more money than Jalen Hurts because it only goes up. It never goes back this way. It only goes this way. Is this going to become an issue that Jalen Hurts, when all is said and done, is going to go, yeah, wait a minute, you and I, Howie, we need to sit down and redo this deal. The ink is still drying on it, but Jalen Hurts is already in a position where he can say, I'm underpaid. We got to redo this thing. I know it's not an anti-Eagle segment. It's a reality segment. And I apologize to all you Eagle fans out there are going to hate me for ever even bringing it up, but it's a legitimate question to you, Tommy. We don't think of Jalen Hurts as a rabble-rouser, a guy who's going to come in and make waves, but everybody in the National Football League that's just the way. I took a call last night, sorry to go long-winded on you here, on WIP about why don't players just adhere to contracts? They sign contract, the contract should be in place, and I had to explain to them, you realize that owners don't guarantee all contracts. And he said, NBA, NHL, well, those sports all guarantee all the contracts. The NFL, that's not the case. Nope. Even Jalen Hurts' big contract is not completely guaranteed. That's why players, when they have unbelievable years like, say Hassan Reddick, want to talk about getting their contract redone and reevaluated because that's the way the NFL works. It's in the moment, kind of like Jalen Hurts being the 3rd best player in the NFL. It's an in-the-moment vote off last season when he was that good. Should we be worried at all that Jalen Hurts is very soon to be, if not already, underpaid?
No. And I'll tell you why. He's already answered.
Thank you for saying that for me.
He's already answered the question for you. The fact that he signed first tells you he wasn't in it for every last nickel. If he truly wanted to be the highest paid of this new wave batch of quarterbacks, he would have waited for the other guys to sign, and he would have signed after them. Jalen wanted to get the deal done. He wanted to get his money, and he wanted to focus on football. He got so close to winning a Super Bowl last year, and that is driving him like nobody's business to get back there and finish the deal this year. He didn't want to be worrying about a contract during training camp leading into the season. He wanted that in his rear view mirror. Yeah, so Justin Herbert got a few extra dollars. Joe Burrow get a few extra dollars. Jalen doesn't care about that. He's got big money in the bank. He's set for life. He wants to focus on winning. He wants to go win a Super Bowl. He's not going to worry about a few dollars here and there.
And I mentioned him as well, Hassan Reddick, which let me just set the record straight here because I'm already taking, on the commentary here on the stream. The media did not bring up Hassan Reddick's contract. Hassan Reddick brought up Hassan Reddick's contract because he was asked a question about how he grades himself, how he motivates himself. And he said, we have players in the league who motivate themselves, who get themselves driven by their contracts. He brought up contracts first. He wasn't asked about a contract. He took the conversation there. Then the follow-up question absolutely went to contracts, and he went off on it. But he, again, did not say, yes, I need to be paid more. I need to renegotiate. He didn't do that. So that's to Hassan Reddick's credit. But this line of Hassan didn't bring it up. The media did. No. Hassan brought it up. So sorry for that, Eagle fans. If you want to continue to believe that untrue narrative, that's not the way it went down. But it became a story here in town. It's kind of been pushed to the background again, which is a good thing. But we'll see if Hassan plays any. Do you think he's going to play any in preseason? We know what Hassan Reddick is. Do you really think Hassan Reddick needs work on the new Sean Desai defense? I don't. Are we going to see Hassan Reddick play at all in the preseason? I'm sure he's going to play some of the joint practices because his coaching staff put an emphasis on that. But is this story going to go away that Hassan Reddick and the Philadelphia Eagles should be talking about a contract extension?
He will not play in the preseason. You're right. He'll play in a joint practice. You're absolutely right on that. Listen, the Eagles will have a good feel for what his true feelings on this are. They could wait until next offseason and address his contract. Then they'll have 2 years of information, and they could say, all right, you've outplayed your contract. There's no question he outplayed it, but you have to be careful about a guy outplaying it after 1 year, right? Because 1 year is that anomaly. You know, Jason Babbitt had the 18 sack year and then never came close to that again in the NFL.
All right, so let me interrupt you, and I'll let you finish your thought. For me, just if I were a general manager, the perfect time to do something like this is midway through a contract. They only signed a 3-year contract with him. So he hasn't reached the midway. And you're right. It's still just 1 year that he had this unbelievable season. But if you wait till the end of the year, now you're 2/3 of the way through the contract and you only got 1 year left to go. And if you're Hassan Reddick, you want it done ahead of time. So the optimum place to do it would be like mid-season this year, because you're in the middle. There's more than a year left. You're more than a year into the contract. Is that feasible, that the Eagles do something in the middle of the season?
It's possible. And this is where you and I are on the outside. We don't know what his agent is like, and Howie Roseman is going to have a good feel for that agent. And if Howie feels like I can talk to the agent during the season, we can work out some incentives and make this all go away, because they don't need to give him a new contract. Just add some incentives. And I think you can solve a lot of this. So if you just tweak his current contract, and if Howie feels like it won't be a distraction to Hassan, then you can work on it into the regular season. If they feel like Hassan's really upset, this has to be dealt with now, then you get with his agent right now and you make it a focal point. And you work. Now, again, you're working behind the scenes, but I think this is solvable. It isn't like he's halfway through a contract that he's like year 3 of a 6-year deal or something like that. You know, he's played 1 year on the deal. He got good money. It's not like the guy's super underpaid. He's just he played better than anybody anticipated, right? So this is not like a guy who's getting $1.5 billion or something like that. You know, he made what, 15 million bucks last year.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he had a good deal. They just need to tweak it a little bit to give him some more in case he has another 15, 16, 17 sack year. You want to make sure that you're paying a guy and he's happy.
Let me ask you a question about incentives just in general. When it comes to football, I'm tentative about it if I'm a general manager, because there's play calling on a day in, down in, down out basis where you're going to ask guys to do something the great majority of the time, but every once in a while you're going to have a Hassan Reddick coming off the line and actually having to cover a back coming out of the backfield, whatever. And that is predetermined before the players run. And if you're making that much more per sack, you don't ever want that play called from the sideline. You want to be going up the field on every single play all season long, because I make that much more if I'm going to get sacks. So you get a guy who, depending on the play call, isn't happy with it. And he comes over and he lets his coach know about it. And then you're not staying in the moment of the game. Does that bother you at all? Does it cause you any fear if you're a general manager, be giving a guy an incentive-laden contract who then might look at the way the play calling is going down as a deterrent from them keeping the chance to make their money?
There's some risk there for sure. No question about it. Hassan, I feel like, is enough of a team player that, again, I think he's going to focus on the big picture, trying to win. And it's not like you're going to give him $1 million a sack, right? We don't know if you're talking about $50,000 a sack, $100,000 a sack, whatever you're giving him. So if he gets 14 versus 16, it's not like it's a fortune that he's losing. And again, he's got a good salary to start with. This is not like a player that they signed on the cheap and he's just way outperformed the deal and he is just miserable right now. He's a little frustrated that other guys are making more than him, and he feels like he was the best pass rusher in the NFL last year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a reasonable take from him. And I think he's going about things the right way. This isn't like some TO situation where it's some huge distraction, whatever. He's just letting the Eagles know, listen, I had a great year last year. I have a really good contract, but maybe not a great contract. I'd like a great contract to reflect a great year. So I don't have any problem with what he's doing. And incentives, you're taking a chance there, but there is no perfect solution other than you just hand a player $1 gazillion and say, let's keep him happy. Well, that's not the NFL. You got a salary cap, you got teammates to worry about, things of that nature. So you have to take some risk somewhere. So I think incentives, I think if you're dealing with a high character player like Hassan Reddick, I think you'd be okay.
All right. Let me ask you one more thing. And again, there are directions that the NFL is taking, and Eagles either get out and lead or follow suit with certain positions in the National Football League. All the rave all offseason was the devalued running back. Well, the Eagles had already done that. They let Miles Sanders walk. They brought in guys for less. They trade for DeAndre Swift, who's on the last year of a rookie deal, so you know what his cost is going to be, not outrageous. They get Rashad Penny on the cheap. They get Boston Scott back on a very team-friendly deal. So Miles Sanders making more money than the entire Eagles running back room. They're in the mix with everybody in the NFL. I think they were in the mix with the NFL in the devalued linebacker position, and they had to acknowledge that this weekend and add guys. Again, don't know the details on the contract yet, guaranteed money, but at least the way it's been reported minimally to this point, each of the two linebackers they sign have a chance to make up to $2.5 million. We'll figure out how up to is broken down coming up. And then you have the position that's already been devalued for years in the National Football League, and that's kicker, be it either punter or place kicker. The fact that teams will just say, well, we'll get somebody off the street when need be, just blows my mind in something as important. And I think kicker is more important than punter, but don't tell that to Eagle fans when they have a punter get off a Shankopotamus in the Super Bowl and it ends up being a major factor in them not winning the game. Yeah, I wanted to come out and make fun of the Cowboys today because they had to cut their kicker, Tristan Vizcaino. Who's Tristan Vizcaino? It was the Cowboys kicker up until 2 days ago. Now their kicker is somebody named Aubrey, who I've never even heard of. He used to be a soccer player. He played professional soccer, and then he played for Birmingham in the USFL. First time he ever played football in his life. And now he's their lead kicker in camp right now. So the fact that the NFL just doesn't put any money or any effort into having the best kickers boggles my mind. So I wanted to poke fun at the Cowboys today. But then again, Aaron Siposs is still here as the Eagles punter. Is this going to be a catch-as-catch-can off the street? If Siposs doesn't get the job done, are they going to be reaching out for a new punter before the season, in season? How concerned are you with the Eagles punting situation?
It's definitely something to pay attention to. The Eagles had the 5th fewest punts in the NFL last year, so it's not a critical position for them the way it would be for a team, I don't know, say like the Tennessee Titans that runs the ball, plays possession-heavy football, field position's critical for them. So for them, punter's a position that you really have to have a good player. The Eagles are going to go for it on 4th down. They have an aggressive offense. They throw the ball down the field. So they don't have as many punting situations where it's critical. But that said, we saw it hurt them in some games in the regular season, and it absolutely crushed them in the Super Bowl. So they need to be better, whether that's Siposs or somebody else. You know, they brought in Zander, the undrafted rookie. He's not impressed this summer. They will be watching other games, preseason games, and checking the waiver wire to see if there's a better option. Now, the Eagles still like Siposs. There's something they like about him. I don't fully understand it. But if they feel comfortable with him, they'll go with him. but I guarantee they're at least looking around to see if there are better options. Last year when he got hurt, they brought in Brett Kern, the veteran, but a great track record, and Kern just struggled. So there's not always great punting options available because it's not just about leg strength. It's about skill of getting that ball, getting hang time, getting accuracy. And that's a tough thing for guys to kind of hone those skills. And there's just not 32 really good punters in the world. So sometimes that's a position where you have to go with the guy that you feel like is good enough. And Sipos, last year he was good enough to help win a lot of games, just not good enough to help win the Super Bowl.
Tommy, for any of our streamers that are planning on going to Eagles, IGGLESblitz.com, what's the next posting going to be about? Give us a little bit of a hint to be on the lookout for it.
I'm going to write about how negative Jody McDonald is and how people shouldn't trust him.
Killing me. Now I got to hear it from you. It's bad enough I got to take it on the stream. I got to take it from you too, Lawler.
What can I say? The topics present themselves.
Yes, they do. And I present them and get your input, Johnny Mac's input, and, our streamers' input.
I knew John would be disappointed if I didn't come at you with something like that.
That's good. Yeah, I know. I got it. Just having fun. That's what we do here on Birds 365, and you add to it whenever you come on. Tommy, thanks. We'll certainly be getting you up before the season gets underway. Appreciate
Sounds
it,
good,
buddy.
Thanks.
Tom Lawler, Eagles, IGGLES Blitz.com. All right, Jody Mac coming back. We'll get Ricky Ricardo up. Ricky will come on, and he'll do nothing but tell you how great the Eagles are going to be. I'll ask him some questions about question marks going into the season for the Eagles. Ricky will have all the answers. It'll be a foregone conclusion that they're not only going to, but win the Super Bowl again. Maybe that's what it'll give us. I don't know. You're going to have to stay tuned to find out. Ricky Ricardo, voice of the Eagles and the Espanol, joining us hour number 2 here on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save at Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. E-A-G-L-E-S. Eagles.
Johnny Mac here with you on Birds 365. Johnny Mac already over at Eagles practice. So he was with us for the first half hour, then made his exit to get over to the NovaCare complex. We just had our buddy Tommy Lawler. Tommy Lawler, he has never taken a shot at me before, but he had to take a shot at the Mac Man today. In good fun. I know, I get it. Not mad at Tommy even a little bit, but I just was taken aback by it because he'd never done that before. Good on him. He caught me off guard. But always appreciate Tommy Lawler. Ricky Ricardo is going to join us coming up in just a couple of minutes, the voice of the Eagles in Espanol. And he's got a Eagles and Espanol announcement to make today, which for those of you who listen to Ricky in Spanish. Now, I know a whole bunch of you like Ricky on WIP as well. You should. Does a great show. May or may not listen to him in Espanol. If you do, muchas gracias, says Mr. Ricardo. But he's a straight shooter. That's why I like Ricky, and he'll shoot us straight today when he jumps on with us today. And I like to think of myself as a straight shooter. It's funny when I shoot straight, if it's not just singing the praises of the Eagles, some of you guys on the stream take me to task and have to remind me that I was a Cowboy fan 20 years ago. Now, 20 years ago was the first 40 years of my life. So I'm not trying to dodge a bullet and say I wasn't a Cowboy fan. I was, and I was very outspoken about it in the 90s on WIP when I was. But it's been a long time since I've been a Cowboy fan. So if you're going back to ancient history as to why I'm pointing out potential, and this is all they are, potential shortcomings of the Philadelphia Eagles, then I just can't win you over. That's fine. Nor do I care about winning you over. I think my job is to bring up all aspects of the Philadelphia Eagles here on Birds 365, good, bad, or indifferent. And yes, there is much more good coming into the season than there is bad or indifferent. But we're seeing indifferent kind of rear its ugly head at the linebacker position this week. That's why I asked Tommy about the punter position that the Eagles may be in within the next couple of weeks if Aaron Sipos doesn't dazzle at either practice or in the joint practices or in the couple of preseason games. Yeah, punters, they do get run out there. They're not a protected class when it comes to preseason football. They got to go out there and actually kick. And again, if it hadn't happened in the Super Bowl, I think that you might be right to go, Jody Mack, shut up about punting. Why are you bringing up punting? Who cares about punting? It is a undervalued skills position in the National Football League. That's my opinion. Whether it be the Eagles or the Jets or the Carolina Panthers or the Seattle Seahawks or any team, I think the NFL just in general does fly by the seat of their pants stuff when it comes to the kicking game. Yeah, that's my opinion. So I'm going to bring it up from time to time here on Birds 365. But hey, the Eagles are still the team to beat in the NFC. That's my belief. You know that I've told you here on the air, I've already put my wagers in for this upcoming season, an all-green Super Bowl. And I'm not worried about the environment. I'm just giving you team colors. Eagles against the Jets come February this year. So if I was an Eagle hater, I wouldn't be betting on them to go back to the Super Bowl for the second consecutive year. All right, let me get a quickie timeout in here. I see my guy, Ricky Ricardo, the voice of the Eagles in Espanol, is in the green room. He will join us next here on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake 'em out. Mama, go up, up, up.
She did it.
Again?
You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
EAGLES. Eagles.
You got Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Appreciate everybody who streamed in. If you're on the line and you're checking us out, you can go ahead and hit that like button. You got to like the fact that the voice of the Eagles in Espanol is joining me, Ricky Ricardo. Mi amigo, ¿qué pasa?
Good morning, my friend. I'm dedicating this appearance today to my buddy Kevin Brown, the voice of the Baltimore Orioles. So I'm just making that very clear. I'm in support of my man Kevin Brown. So I am dedicating today's appearance to him. Okay. You can explain the situation.
I will quickly, and I will also cover my own backside here. And Ricky comes to us free of charge. We don't pay Ricardo for his appearances, nor does John McMullen get paid when he opts on WIP with Ricky. So it's kind of a one hand washes the other thing. I actually do get paid $14.12 an hour. And if I get suspended today for spitting facts about the Eagles, I guess I shouldn't be shocked because, yeah, your compatriot from the Baltimore Orioles found the same thing at his doorstep. All he did was state facts. Yep. And I thought he was putting a spin on it that made the Orioles look good, but somehow their obnoxious owner took that as making the Orioles look like they were cheap. It makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know how that came down, but it was an embarrassment for the Baltimore Orioles.
So the interesting thing is the facts that he gave out are on the team's daily game notes. So all he did was read from the team's game notes that day and still got in trouble for it. So
I'm hoping that PR person, not that I'm going to sound like such a bad person here, but I hope that person got suspended too. Because if you put them in the game notes, yeah, the announcers are going to use them. Suspend them all. Oh, that's right. You're trying to win the American League East. Maybe you shouldn't be trying to do that right about now. But here's the good news, Ricardo. You will be able to solely focus on the Philadelphia Eagles by October because you're not going to have to worry about Yankee postseason games.
It's a kind of a double-edged sword when your team is, steadily going in the wrong direction, shall we say. Now, I heard your prediction of an all-green Super Bowl.
Correct.
Like you, Jody, as you know, I was born and raised a Jet fan, although obviously my loyalty has swung completely 95 miles south to the Philadelphia Eagles. But I think that would be rather interesting, and it is not out of the realm of possibility that Aaron Rodgers and the Jet defense have enough to get them through the AFC. And I would welcome anybody in Las Vegas would welcome anybody other than Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes again. So
did you catch the Rodgers interview in game in the Hall of Fame game the other night?
No, I was doing a ball game. So
okay, you were I forgot you were probably at Yankee Stadium or somewhere else.
Yeah.
If you go back and catch it, I was really pretty impressed by him because my opinion of Rodgers has not changed. He might be the most talented quarterback to ever play the position. He's not the best because that incorporates accomplishments, and he's got one Super Bowl, and that Brady guy has that many more. So he's the greatest of all time. But if you're just talking about the skill set needed to play quarterback in the NFL, he might be the best who's ever played. But he's a bit of a diva, and he's a bit of a whack job, and ayahuasca and dark retreats and the like. So I never know what's going to come out of his mouth. He was really on point and very positive about what he expects to do with the Jets and his commitment to the Jets. So if you're a quasi Jet fan, go check that out and then go, oh man, Jody, you get 90-1. If the Jets beat the Eagles, which I bet that 90-1. If the Eagles beat the Jets, it's only 80-1 because the Eagles are more of a favorite coming into the season. But those are my two wagers, and I'm feeling good about them both. So we'll see how that shakes out. All right, from the Eagles' perspective, go ahead.
Let it ride.
I'm in. From an Eagle perspective, late addition linebackers. Well, I say late addition, it all is where you draw your line. Late in that they didn't sign them during the offseason, waited until camp opened up, got a peek at their linebackers, and go, maybe we need to put more emphasis on the linebacker position. But it's early because at least they have all of camp or most of camp, certainly all of the preseason games to get up to speed. What do you make of the Eagles at this time jumping in and not signing one, but two? Is this Howie's new modus operandi when you see a position that needs a bit of an upgrade? No, we're not bringing in one. We're bringing in two guys. We need a safety net to the safety net to have guys. He did it last year at the defensive tackle position. What do you make of the two new linebackers added to the Eagle roster this week?
You read my mind. Last year, obviously, Ndamukong Suh was one of the two guys they brought in to reinforce the line. I'm a big Miles Jack guy. I always was. Now, kudos to Howie Roseman for seeing a potential issue. We have an ankle injury with Nakobe Dean. You don't want that to get out of hand, or maybe for that to slow down anything of this train moving forward. So kudos to him for getting aggressive and making sure that these guys don't fall on some other roster possibly between now and the time we get to Foxborough on September the 10th. I've always been a big Miles Jack guy. The linebacker position, and look, the only concern I have with this team, Jody, is down the middle of the defense, linebackers and safety. I think up front we're fine. I think I like our corners. We have a lot of youth, obviously, and if we're going to have the same scheme defensively now that we did under Gannon, you also know that linebacker is not, in this particular scheme, not as important as it might be on some other defensive coordinators' radar. Having said that, though, I thought last year, and actually going back a few years, linebacker has been the quote-unquote weak link of the defense. Kudos to Howie to get this done now. As you just mentioned, there's plenty of time to get them integrated into the system. They'll probably see some time even starting this weekend in Baltimore. So, look, I'm impressed by everything Howie Roseman does. This guy has taken the position of player personnel and general manager and the like to another level in these past few seasons. Executive of the year, no. Executive of the decade, possibly executive of the century for me, for Howie Roseman. But I thought it was interesting when I read about that on Sunday. But of the two guys, I'm a big Miles Jack guy.
All right, and we'll see what Miles Jack brings to the table. But in redoing the linebackers, you said last year with Gannon, certainly, and we expect this year's defense to be similar. Not exactly the same, but similar.
True.
Not as much of an emphasis on linebacker. 159 tackles is a lot to replace, and that's what TJ Edwards got last year. Is Nakobe Dean going to be able to get into the neighborhood as many as 159 tackles? Now, Edwards was not a playmaking linebacker. He doesn't forced fumbles. He doesn't come up with interceptions, but just a stone cold solid tackler. Nakobe Dean going to be able to do what he did?
I hope so. I loved him coming out of school. I think he's got the tools to be able to do it. Now, remember, TJ Edwards didn't appear overnight. Okay. Remember, this is a kid out of Wisconsin who, nobody really had on their radar to be as good as he turned out to be, but it took him a few seasons to develop into the TJ Edwards that we saw last year. My fear is that if Nakobe Dean hasn't caught up to that, it may take him another year to get the best out of him. Now, I think Dean is surrounded by more talent, more young, pure talent than Edwards was at this same stage in their parallel careers. Am I confident that Dean can get to those numbers? Second-level defender, as you mentioned, Edwards wasn't a big playmaker, but when the plays got to him, he was able to make them, which, when you think about it, is just as important. I'm banking on Dean being better in time than Edwards. I think he's a better athlete.
All right. I do want to talk a little bit about the Eagle offense with you as well, Rick. Last night we found out, according to the NFL players, Jalen Hurts, third best player in the National Football League, trailing only Patrick Mahomes and Justin Jefferson. NFL.com released their top 10. They had been slowly releasing their entire top 100. Top 10, Jalen Hurts comes in at number 3, ahead of Joe Burrow, number 6, ahead of Josh Allen, number 8, the number 3 player in the National Football League. We all just accept the fact that Jalen Hurts is like God's gift to Philadelphia when it comes to football. He performs on the field. He handles himself like a pro. He's driven. He says all the right things. Any chance this is a little bit of an ego boost that will have any potential downside ramifications?
I don't see it. Jody, I don't see it. I don't think the contract, I don't think the extra hype is going to be a negative. If there's one thing about Jalen Hurts that impresses me even more than his physical acumen, is his mental approach to the game. As the son of a coach and obviously a very humble guy and just dedicated to his craft, until I see something distract this guy from his mission of winning a Super Bowl. Here's a guy who's, on his phone has got a picture of losing a Super Bowl to remind him every day to use it as motivation. Until I see something distract him and take him away from his razor-sharp focus of getting back to that game and winning it, then I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I've been around baseball players. You and I have both been in locker rooms, clubhouses, for years, and we have seen guys that may have shown up as a country bumpkin, may have shown up as a very quiet, introverted guy. In the matter of seasons gone by, the ego, the contract, the women, the distractions, all that may catch up to certain guys. Jody, I'm convinced this guy is all about football.
Right.
I mean, he has shown me nothing that would indicate to me that I have to worry about Jalen Hurts letting a list, a contract, anything distract him from his mission of taking the Philadelphia Eagles to another Super Bowl. So I understand exactly where you're coming from because I've experienced it. There have been guys that when they have come up to, let's say, the major league level, not so much in football, but baseball, you see guys on a daily basis for such a long time. I'll give you an example, and even a guy like a Domingo Germán, who I saw very humble one day and very aloof the next day, over the matter of days and over the matter of seasons, over the course of seasons, as an example. But I don't think Jalen Hurts will let a list or the hype or the fact that he didn't do, the TV show for Netflix, nothing of the negative or the positive side. This guy has blinders on. His mission is Las Vegas and beyond, championships, and I think he'll be just fine.
I love the fact that he passed on the Netflix show because that was my one concern, was because Jalen is such a good guy. and a dedicated employee and a Philadelphia Eagle through and through that maybe too many people would be grasping at him for his time because he had such a meteoric rise in one season that the commitments, the media attention, that he would just try and be too good a guy and not say no. So when he said no to let Netflix, I said, all right, that's a real good sign for Jalen.
Big time.
But again, playing devil's advocate here, Eagle fans, his new offensive coordinator is a guy who's known him since he was a wee lad and has been around him forever in Brian Johnson. And Johnson is first year in the NFL calling plays. And Shane Steichen, to me, was phenomenal at it last year here in Philadelphia. So we need to see Brian Johnson as a play caller. Not saying he's not going to be good. He could be as good, even better than Shane Steichen. But it's an unknown coming into the season. And the other unknown is, as close as Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts are, their dynamic, their relationship changes a little bit when you're now the offensive coordinator and the play caller and you're dealing with your quarterback. Is there a chance that they're too close, that they're too tight, that will be a tough relationship to negotiate because they've known each other as long as they have?
I think with this particular player, you're right in theory. I think you are right in theory. The difference here is Hurts. There's something about this guy that sets him apart from other players that I may have a concern if it were another set of guys. Johnson, I can't vouch for. Hurts, I think I know enough about and have seen enough and feel good enough about that I don't think it's going to deter him from the mission. If Johnson has to come down on him for whatever reason, I just don't see it. I see the potential if it were two other guys. And like I said, if it were anybody other than Hurts, then I would say, Jody, the jury is out. We'll have to see as we go along. I'm going to go in here with blinders on. If there's one thing that concerns me overall about the coaching staff, obviously, is the lack of experience with both coordinators on the offensive and defensive side. I think time and the fact that they have so much talent is going to accelerate the time it takes for these two guys to blend into the positions. And hopefully it'll happen by opening day, because you never know week to week in this league and the emotion of the game in New England. The Brady thing, though, it's Belichick who's trying to catch Don Shula, for Pete's sake. So you don't want to have a slip up or trip up here early in the season because of a mistake made by a young coordinator. I just don't see it on Hurts's part. You're right. They're very, very tight. They've known each other a very, very long time. I think in this particular case, with this quarterback, I think that may enhance, instead of running the risk of being a potential, a dynamite field, I think this will not only enhance his on-field performance, but I think the comfort level that he has with Johnson is going to keep him in that lane that we just discussed of being humble and dedicated to his craft.
Good to hear. All right, I'm going to ask you about three positions that in the National Football League, my opinion, have been devalued. And the Eagles are right there with everybody else in the National Football League in devaluing these positions. But there is the possibility that you can go too far in devaluing. The three positions are linebacker. We already talked about that with the two guys they just signed. And Nakobe Dean, Willie, or won't he be the equivalent of TJ Edwards coming into the year? The other two are running back and the kicking game. Let's go running back first. Eagles decided to let Miles Sanders walk away, signs with Carolina. They put together a running back room that is making basically the same as Miles Sanders. One player, Eagles have 5 guys under contract. The 5 guys make about what Miles is going to make this year in Carolina. So they've been able to put together a pretty good looking room on paper for a very inexpensive price. Did Howie Roseman do a good job, a great job, a questionable job at, from last year's running back roster to this year's running back roster? Very similar, except for one big change at the top. Did he do a good enough job? Is this running back group going to get the job done the same way that it did last year?
I love it. I absolutely love it. Swift, Penny, Gainwell, and then your Swiss Army knife type of guy in Boston Scott, who's also a special teamer. Now, Are you ready? I think those are the four guys. When it comes down to
poor
it,
Trey Sermon is spit out of luck, even though Nick Sirianni goes bending over backwards to try and tell you how great he looks at practice.
And I'm a Trey Sermon guy. I think short of an injury, and Penny's been injury prone. Kenny Gainwell's been very, very reliable. Swift has had, nicks here and there, nicked up here and there. It's a great insurance policy to have Sermon, as we did last year. But not only did Howie improve the room, made it financially, I don't know the word I'm looking for here. He fit a square peg in a round hole to be able to pay some other people and still have an upgrade in talent. I think Swift, I put him on that same level or maybe even a step above Miles Sanders. I was a Sanders guy. I saw him go up and down the last couple of years. He was a little bit slow to the hole on several occasions last year. You're running behind the best offensive line, in my opinion, in the entire National Football League. I think Howie is very astute at moving away from players right before their careers start to take a downturn. Carolina may get, I don't know, a year, maybe two of the Miles Sanders that we saw on the upswing in Philadelphia. If they get 2 years out of Sanders at the money that they're paying, they probably, quote unquote, Jody, break even. I love the fact that these guys are still on an upward climb, these backs. Penny is the guy that interests me the most. I know what I'm going to get from Swift because I saw him do it against the Eagles. I know what I'm going to get from Gainwell. I'm convinced. You don't have to, sell me on Gainwell, especially, passes out of the backfield. Boston Scott can do everything, special teams, the giant killer. Penny is the guy that really intrigues me the most in this group. When I saw him in Seattle, when the Pete Carroll offenses had a halfway decent offensive line, this guy was dynamite, Jody. Dynamite.
Yes.
That four-headed monster, if you want to call it three backs, and if you want to say Boston Scott, you even want to look at him as kind of an extra or special teamer and Sermon as an insurance policy. Not only was it a brilliant move financially for Howie Roseman, I think it's an upgrade to what we've had the last couple of years.
We shall see. That would be a major feather in Howie's cap if it plays out the way you're describing. And then comes the kicking game. And we all know Jake Elliott's good. He's above average. I'll take my chances with him walking out for a 50-yarder to win the game. Week 1, week 7, week 9, week 14. The kicking game, the guy who's going to need to make the big field goal, I'm not worried at all about the Eagles. I think they're in dynamite shape. Punter, that could be a little different. And Aaron Sipas is back. And McMullen, who goes to practice every single day and tries to take notes when the punting sessions go down, say it hasn't been close. He has distanced Stettner, the kid that they brought in to compete with him. But it still hangs over the Eagles like a dark cloud, the punt in the Super Bowl that allowed Kansas City to start inside the red zone. And we know the result of the game now. He really wasn't that good last year. Sorry, Aaron. Love to root for you, but the facts are the facts, and I'm spitting facts kind of like the Baltimore Oriole play-by-play guy here. Hope it doesn't get me suspended. But I have concerns about the punting game. Here's my question to you, Ricky Ricardo. The Eagles opened up, brought back with at least for a day, open arms, Josh Sills, who is on the commissioner's list. Charges against him for rape and kidnapping. He was found not guilty in a court of law, so the commissioner raised his suspension, and he was reinstated by the Philadelphia Eagles. And they had some nice enough things to say about him yesterday when the ruling came down that their dealings with Josh have been great. The court has spoken. They've said what they've had to say, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. And I hope they judge him by his abilities on the field. If they're going to bring Josh Sills back, and they weren't just, hey, listen, this is too much to handle, we need to move on with Sills, why don't they bring Matt Araiza in? the punt god, who last year was cut by the Buffalo Bills when accusations, and they were only accusations, not even arrested like Josh Sills was. That was enough for him to get pushed out of the National Football League. He's still out there. I watch this kid because I'm on the air till 2 o'clock in the morning on CBS Sports Radio on the weekend. So I get to see WAC games, Mountain West games, because they're on TV while I'm on the air. And I watched this kid punt, and he kicked the football like nobody I've ever seen before, including the great guy. He just was amazing. And I know he's on a collegiate level, but you got that kind of a talent out there, and we assume the reason he's not on a National Football League roster is because of these off-field accusations against him. Why don't the Eagles at least bring him in for a workout?
Are you convinced that Sippos is not the guy yet? Completely convinced?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, it wouldn't shock me at some. Remember, a punter you could probably integrate into the system faster than any other position. So, as compared to a linebacker like the two guys they just signed, or trying to blend a guy into an offensive line, for example, I just think that there's still enough time moving forward to where if they don't see enough, let's see these two guys kick this week, maybe the move gets made. It's a move that can be made basically right up until the time you get ready for opening day.
That's a good point. It's not like you need to learn the system.
Exactly.
It should take you about 2.5 hours of classroom time to sit down and be able to figure out what the team wants you to do when you're called on to punt every week in the league.
Obviously, and you just mentioned the Josh Sills situation. I can go back to Michael Vick, and there's probably a bunch of other examples. But the Philadelphia Eagles are an organization that is very fair. They're very fair in situations like this. They don't play the card of using things as an excuse. You were exonerated. You did your time. They are very open-minded and very fair about the way they judge their players. They don't hold things over their heads on both sides. Okay, they'll discipline a guy when necessary. A guy's been proven innocent or has done his time, for example. They're willing to embrace them again. So the attitude of the organization doesn't worry me at all. What I'm saying is I'll give these two guys that are the original two in camp some time to either win the job, or if Howie's still scratching his head after one or two of the preseason games, then don't let it shock you if we're not having this conversation, and maybe that young man gets invited, him or someone else would get invited to camp. What I'm saying is on the 10th of September, I'm confident that the most talented group of guys that are out there available in every position will be wearing Eagle uniform. So because it's a punter, it's not as urgent to get him into camp as some other positions might be. So I'll take a wait and see attitude on it.
All right. So Saturday, the Eagles start their preseason at the Baltimore Ravens. Oh, by the way, let me tick off the Eagle fans one more time. The Eagles are going to lose on Saturday. Not because they're the Eagles, not because they prep less than anybody else, not because they got questions at certain positions. They got the number 3 player in the National Football League. That's pretty damn good. They're going to lose because John Harbaugh just never loses a preseason game. He puts a lot of effort into it, and the Ravens win every single time they play. So the Eagles are going to lose on Saturday.
And that's fine.
That's right. No skin off anybody's noses. It should not be. You will be in the house to call the game on Saturday?
Yes, I will. I will fly in from Miami on Saturday morning. I will call the game, and believe you me, my baseball this weekend is the Miami Marlins. Okay, the Yankees are in Miami, and Jody, you know me well enough. I do not miss on any opportunity to call a game in stadium in either Tampa, Miami. I'll even go as far north as Atlanta, which I'll be next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So, yes, I will be in Baltimore. I will fly in on Tuesday, and I will fly right back out on Sunday morning to get back and caught up to the baseball. But I'm looking forward to being at the M&T Bank Stadium, as I will be at every preseason game. I believe there's only one trip this year that I may do the game out of a studio, which is the Seattle game. But a lot of travel for your boy this season.
That's great to hear. Yes, the schedule makers did Ricky Ricardo a solid because they're playing the AFC East, which means don't have to go to the West Coast. The road games of the Patriots right off the bat, and the Jets. Oh, that's the drive up the turnpike. So very, very easy for you to get to the games. Great to hear you're going to be doing as many games in studio, and maybe only one that you're going to need to call on the monitor. What was? Shame on me, I'm having a senior moment. What was this football stadium in Baltimore before it was M&T? Because everybody changes the name on their damn team, their stadium's names, because they get a new sponsor. The bank that sponsors it gets sold. What the hell was it before it was M&T?
Good question. I think M&T was the original name.
Forever? You think from day one? No, it was something else. And
did it have another corporate name before M&T Bank?
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm making this stuff up, but I thought it was something else, which is another thing that.
Yeah, it's the next door neighbor of Oriole Park at Camden Yards. They're right there, one next to the other. So that'll be interesting. I don't know if the O's are home this week.
Yeah, the O's aren't playing. Otherwise, you're going to have a tough time getting in and out of the stadium. That's a pain in the rear end when they're both together at the same time. Hopefully, that's not the case. Or at least, hopefully, the Orioles are playing a day game if the Eagles are playing against 7 o'clock kickoff on.
The Orioles played at home this past weekend against your New York Mets. So it probably won't be on the road this weekend.
They haven't been my New York Mets for a while, but that's okay. My dad was there for a long period of time, so I get it. All right, Ricardo, we will let you say adieu here. We're definitely going to try and get you on at least once more before the season gets underway. Looking forward to hearing your highlights after the fact.
Anytime, Jody. McMullen, you guys are the best. I enjoy coming on each and every time, so just reach out, and I'll be here for you.
Our pleasure. That is Ricky Ricardo, voice of the Eagles and Espanol, here with us on Birds 365. And when Eagles are playing, I know that I can go get Ricky's highlights after the fact. And when the Eagles make a huge play, he is phenomenal at it. Yes, we know Merrill. Yes, we know the television guys. And oh, by the way, the Eagles are going to have the number one Fox team a bunch this year, the number one CBS team this year, because either Fox or CBS, because they got a bunch of games, and the whole division between the NFC must be on Fox and the AFC must be on CBS isn't what it used to be. They kind of shared the games. I don't even understand it, but they're going to get first-rate announcers and or primetime announcers plenty this year. But then you go back and you catch the Ricky Ricardo call, and Espanol is always a lot of fun too. All right, Jody Mac coming back. I need to put a bow on the show. Keep it right here on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
Johnny Mac here on Birds 365. Johnny Mac already over at the Eagles practice facility. He'll be back here tomorrow. I will not. I'll give you details on that in a second. But before we put a bow on the show, I do want to give the Eagles credit for one more thing. Not a big story, but it's just a good note, and I think the Eagles deserve some props for it. Yes, Eagle fans on the stream, I am very willing and able to give the Eagles props when I think they deserve them. Sorry, I think my job is to point out questions for you. I guess we could do a whole show going, is Dallas Goedert going to be the number 2 tight end in the NFL this year behind only Travis Kelce? Or shooting for some of you Eagle fans, is he going to be the number 1? Surpass Travis Kelce as the best tight end? We could do flowers and roses all day long, but I think we need to do both. Sing their praises when necessary, ask legitimate questions about things that are questionable before the season starts. Here's one that probably isn't going to be that big a deal, but I do like it. Matt Leo, who the Eagles have had on their roster the last several years, international import, get roster dispensation by keeping a guy like him on your roster. And the Eagles have had him around for a couple of years now, and he's not quite an NFL player. He was close, and that's why they kept him. But this year, with even more guys being added to the defensive line, they just didn't want to string the guy along and say, listen, you could actually make it. We could put you on the 53-man roster someday. No, they said, Matt, it's not going to happen, so we're going to move on from you. It was announced yesterday he's going to stay with the organization in a front office capacity. And that's a good thing. And I'll tell you why. Not because he's going to be Howie Roseman in 15 years. He's going to take over as next general manager of Philadelphia. I don't even know what he's going to be able to do for the Eagles in their front office. But if that's going to happen with an ex-Eagle player, I'd probably tell you it's more likely going to be Connor Barwin, who also an ex-Eagle who came back and has joined the Eagles front office. Oh, by the way, went to 2 other teams after being an Eagle and still came back here to work for this organization. I think that it sets a little bit of a mindset out there for players in the National Football League that the Philadelphia Eagles are a class organization, that they not only will give you your due as a player, but they'll treat you like a member of the family. That if you come in and you do a good job and the like, that they're not going to just treat you as an asset, as a just a piece of the puzzle, that they're going to look at you as a human being as well. That's a good thing, because not every Eagle player that comes here is going to get a job in the front office. Then the front office would be 700 deep. But just the fact that they've shown that they will treat you as more than just a commodity as a football player is a good thing. Because most of the times with free agents, it's going to come down to who gives you the most money. But every once in a while, it's really close. Every once in a while, the money is just about equal. And something other than money is the deciding factor for a guy coming in on a free agent deal or not. Not often, but if it's 1 out of every 20 times, wouldn't you want to win that 20th time? Because the guy says, you know, the Eagles are a class organization and they take care of their own. They don't just treat you like a commodity. When you hire a guy like Matt Leo coming in from an international tryout standpoint and he ends up getting a job with the organization, I think that's a good sign. I hope it rings home for potential free agents down the road, like it did for me when I read that story and said, wow, that's a good thing. That's a cool thing. That shows you the Eagles do look at their players as human beings, not just commodities out there on the football field. So I give the Eagles some significant credit for that. Now, Matt Leo, go out there and do something. I don't even know what his gig's going to be, what it's going to entail, but hopefully he does get a chance to contribute to the organization going forward, and good for the Eagles for finding a position for him. All right, here's the breakdown of the rest of the week. Johnny Mac be back tomorrow. I will not. WIP did ask me to come in and do 3 morning shows this week with Joe DeCamera. John Ritchie's taken a week off before the football season truly gets underway. So the next 2 days, at some point, I will be hanging with John McMullen after he's gotten off the air here on Birds 365, because we're doing a show from Eagles Camp. Last year, I got to do a day at Eagles Camp because I filled in with the camera on the midday show on WIP. Now I got to get there at like 5:15 in the morning to be ready to be on the air at 6. Not going to be fun, but working with the camera is usually a couple laughs worth. So I will be at Eagle Camp Wednesday and Thursday, which means I cannot be here on Birds 365. And Friday, they need me to go down to the Borgata and do the morning show as well. So I won't be back here till Monday on Birds 365, but I'll be it's full of my interpretations, my evaluations of the Eagles for a couple of days in camp, so that should be good. By the time I get back here, they will have played their first regular season game. Already set the DVR, because I'll be watching most of the Eagles-Ravens, but then I got to hop on the air on CBS Sports Radio on Saturday night. So, yeah, when I come back on Monday, man, we're going to have a lot to talk about. Johnny Mac will be here for the shows, maybe not the full shows. And your pal and mine, Zander Krause, is going to come up with guys filling in for me. You could be looking at the new Lou Gehrig, who steps in and takes my place. And again, spitting facts sometimes can get you suspended. Ask the play-by-play announcer of the Baltimore Orioles. But my plan as of right now is to be back here on Monday with my bud, John McMullen. You're going to have to stay tuned to see. Thanks to everybody who streamed in today. Hit the like button on the way out. Johnny Mac will be back here. I'll talk to you Monday on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.